Hello, my name is Andrew, and today we're doing a first impression review of the Vivo Barefoot GOBI WAVEY MULE. Up front, it's got a wide toe box, pretty similar to other Vivos, square on this side, a little bit tapered on the outside, but the volume on the WAVEY mules is great. These are definitely the highest Vivos I've tested. Like, compared to the Tracker SG, it just has a higher, more chunky profile. Plus, the suede is really soft, so there's nothing pressing down on the top of your foot when the WAVEY bends. And it's a good all-season barefoot slipper clog because it doesn't have any insulation on the bottom, it's just leather. And then on the top, it's kind of puffy with suede. On the inside, there's cotton and Tencel, and they've done this sort of like perforation thing, so it's got a little bit of breathability here. It's not as warm as wool, but it's more versatile for different seasons, which means right now when it's about 30 degrees outside and the floor is just kind of like cool, I can wear them as is. But then when it's super cold, like when I'm in a van and the floors are just absolutely freezing, I can add a wool felt insole. I could probably fit two in there as well, which is really cool because like I said, there's just so much volume. So if you put a wool insole in the bottom there, it actually makes them a lot warmer. And then for socks, I wear a pair of merino wool and gingies. They're kind of nice because they spread out your toes and they create a little more airflow in there. And then if it's really cold, I'll put a smart wool on top. So these are the hike socks. They also have the mountaineering ones, which are even more fluffy and warmer. And it all fits inside the WAVEY mule. It kind of feels like that kid's book. I'm forgetting what the title is. So like all these animals cram themselves inside this one wool sock and it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. But anyways, my favorite feature of the WAVEY mule is the fact that you can slip it on without using your hands. This is the only hands-free barefoot slipper clog I've ever tested. All the other ones, they're pretty easy to get on, but you have to use like a finger and bend down, and you know, it's slower. It may be also painful if you're someone who's older, has joint pain. But yeah, it also has this strap here, so you can either wear the strap up like this, it just kind of sits snug at the top of the clog, and then you can just slip into the back. And actually, even though it's low here, it's kind of tilted forward, so it creates a bit of a hook on your heel. I got the size 11 or 44 EU, and my feet are kind of like a 10.5, so these run a little bit big. I think if I was planning on wearing them barefoot or just a single pair of lightweight socks, like it wasn't getting that cold, I probably would have gone down to the size 10 or EU 43. But the 44 is nice because I have extra room for multiple socks, and I don't really mind it being a little bit loose, especially because there's the option of taking a strap and then moving it to the back, so you've got some heel support. Also got Velcro, so you can make it as tight or loose as you want to. If you make it more snug, it turns it into more of a shoe where you could actually go on a longer walk with them. Because the sole is 4mm, which is perfect because it's got a ton of flexibility, but it's also got some toughness to handle like light gravel and pavement. Plus, like all the Vivo GOBIs, the sole wraps around and it's quite high, so they're actually waterproof up to this line and stitched for durability as well, which is great. But yeah, same tread as the other GOBIs. It's minimal, it's meant for urban terrain mostly, but there's some harder rubber here at the Vivo logo for wear resistance when you're rolling down, and a little more density in the back where your heel's hitting the ground, plus a hex slug pattern and some nice sticky rubber, although they're not as durable or grippy as a trail shoe by any means. Like I mentioned, the WAVEY has a full leather midsole, and that's really the best all-season option for a slipper because it combines a little bit of insulation, but it's not hot and warmer weather. And that's usually what I prefer because you can always add socks and insoles to make a slipper warmer, but you can't take insulation out once it's in there. In terms of smell, the WAVEY mules do pretty well because leather is antimicrobial and cotton and Tencel are natural materials, so they also have some antimicrobial properties as well. But the top is fairly puffy, so it can harbor some scent, which is why I usually wear socks with them because it's easier to wash a pair of socks than a whole shoe. I will say though that the WAVEY mule is probably too hot for summer, you know, when it's like 70 to 80 degrees, unless it's the morning when the floorboards are cold and you just want something warm over your feet, because even with the thin sole, the upper is pretty thick, so in hotter weather, it just doesn't have enough breathability. So yeah, that's my first impression, but overall, the WAVEY mule is definitely the most versatile barefoot slipper clog that I've tested. Being the only one you can actually slip on hands-free, having the convenience of the strap up or down for doing longer walks, being really nicely insulated on top of the suede, but then having a ton of room up top if you want to stack thick socks or insoles, and like old GOBIs, feeling really natural walking and rolling down on pavement. That said, the one thing to keep in mind about the WAVEYs is like any suede material shoe, you want to be careful not to drop anything that'll stain because it can be quite difficult to get that out of a soft material like this. Anyways, if you'd like to support the channel, you can shop with the referral links down below, browse and filter more products with the shoe finder tool at my website barefootwear.org, or watch my zero drop transition video to learn more about barefooting. Finally, if you have a question about the Vivo Barefoot GOBI WAVEY Mule or about barefoot shoes in general, let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, catch you next time, peace!